Well, hello there. This is Glenn Greenidge and Tom Pope. And tonight, the topic is rent stabilization. Is it working here in New York City? Um, Mayor Adams has taken some steps that look like they're going to not be supportive of rent stabilization. What do you have to say about it, Tom?
Well, it's interesting. First of all, rent stabilization is helping a lot of poor people survive. Um, Now we have a change in the Rent Guidelines Board where two new people have been selected by the mayor, and these two new people are virtually landlord oriented, and they could create problems for the rent stabilization idea. If we have rent stabilization, the idea is to help some people who aren't making as much as, let's say, 80,000 a year. Um, they're helping those people survive. What
Exactly.
was, what was that you were saying about the affordable compared with low income?
Well, when you look at um, the what they call AMI, which is the basis of affordable housing, and that index is used as the watermarker for affordable housing. However, that that index includes Scarsdale, it includes Manhattan, and when you look at some of the outer boroughs, Bronx, Queens, and Brooklyn, the income don't necessarily match up to those areas. So when you look at those other areas, you're now talking about an income that's much less than 80,000 for a household income. So we're talking about a household income. So when you reduce that, you've got families, um, two adults and maybe one or two kids that are barely making 50 or 60 thousand combined household income, and then you look to, so where do they fit in this establishment of affordability? And if you look at the affordable housing that's being built, there are very few apartments that are going to be allocated on a level. So there's 100% AMI, there's 40% AMI, there's 60% AMI, and let's say for example you've got a
Oh, wait a minute. Let's translate this for the average person who isn't into real estate. The idea, though, of the number of people who would be affected um, by low income housing and not having that available, um, what percent of the population would you say that might be?
that that can't afford this quote unquote affordable housing. Or
Right.
um, you probably, again, it depends on the neighborhood. You know, Manhattan and Scarsdale can afford, a $1,200 a one bedroom apartment.
Do
Um,
we have an idea of how many people are in rent stabilized units?
I don't know per se. I don't have that information off the top. I'd have to do some research to find that, but it's not a whole lot when you consider the number of people that are in need of housing, and then when you consider the number of people that are below this AMI, that are struggling to pay the just to pay the rent. You know, one of the things that is, at one point in time, your rent, when you estimated the cost of living, your rent should have been about 25 or 30% of your annual income. Now we're talking about is close to 50 or 60% of your annual income, which doesn't leave much for groceries and or anything else.
Just in terms of low income units that are available for people, it seems to me that every time a plan is made for new units that that will also include low income, by the time the plan actually is underway, the number of low income units have been cut.
Well, they've been, yes, they've been reduced, and it's been reduced because the developers are looking to make the money that they spent back quicker. If what was done was that if we said that this was affordable and the and I was going to say earlier, so let's say for example there's 500 apartments. Out of those apartments, you're talking about maybe 12, 15, maybe 20 are quote unquote affordable housing that the local people can afford to live in. So we're talking about 40 or 60% of this AMI calculation, because you don't have a whole lot of people that are making over 80,000 for a family. It's actually closer to 90.
Now, when the Rent Guidelines Board released a report, it showed that the rent stabilized buildings, the profit margins were being decreased by something like 8%.
Okay.
Um, However, if we're concerned about the landlords losing money, shouldn't we be concerned about the people who live there, who are probably losing a great deal more than 8% in terms of how they support themselves?
Of course. Of course, because you've got the standard of living going up much higher than 8%. You've got you've already got bottom up in terms of the cost of your your housing, and that's going up. So you're so people are losing out, and people are being forced out of neighborhoods. I mean that's what we're talking about. You know, you've got the developers who've got money from the government, from the federal government, to provide affordable housing, but trickle down, what happens is that the affordability of that neighborhood isn't taken into account because you're using this federal guideline.
Let's take a look at what happens to this group of people who might not have living conditions. Now, if they are desperate, maybe they become homeless. If
A lot,
they're really desperate,
a lot of them.
this can add to the crime. How can we say that we're trying to fight crime? How can we say that we're concerned about the homelessness if we're creating the grounds for making people homeless?
Well, that is exactly what's happening. We're making people homeless. There's more crime. There's more mental health. There's more instability because once you don't have your own place, all of those things, it's hard to get a job if you don't have an address. Um, it's hard to take your kids to school. Um, Living in the shelters, from what I understand, is no happy camping. So I mean, so we're and now that we've got the migrants coming in and being bused from other states because we're sanctuary a city, you've now thrown gasoline on a bonfire, and this is it, I mean it's bubbling out and over and on to other areas that are going to be affected because of this homelessness that's being created by the increase in rents. And for Mayor Adams to point to landlord-friendly appointees, one that I understand is going to be looking for the economic aspect of the rent stabilization. Um, I'm afraid that we're going to see more people um, being losing their housing rather than the impact of rent stabilization, which was to save and to accommodate low income people from having to move out of the city.
Um, it's true. This person you're talking about, Archie Gupta, who is actually from the Conservative Manhattan Institute,
Mm.
is one of the new public members. Um, let's see, he told the news site Vox, that he's skeptical of rent control.
Yeah, yeah, and he's going to use economics to provide some reality check around supply and demand when you and I understand very basic economics. If you reduce the supply of apartments, the demand goes up. The demand then means that there are higher prices for whatever inventory is still left available.
So
So
can we say that this policy of aiding the landlords is contributing to increased crime, is contributing to increased homelessness?
all of the above, Tom, all of the above, and that is not the direction that I think that the New York City should be going in at this point in time. Um, the you know, I know that the landlords have to pay their mortgages and so on and so forth, but not at the uh, on the onset of the poor people in this particular city. It's just it's unfair. It's unfair and it's I'm going to say it immoral when you think about it, because you're displacing people and having them to become homeless at a time when you know it, it it's not a good time to be homeless anywhere, and much less in New York City, that is dealing with all of the collateral damage that's associated with people now losing their homes or not having a stable environment to come home to.
What would you say in closing?
Well, in closing, I think that this whole game plan needs to be rethought, because I don't think I know that it's not going to have the intended outcome, which is providing reasonable housing for the working class people.
How about getting a couple of people who live in um, rent stabilized buildings to be part of the rent stabilized rent guidelines board?
Well, there's a tenant position that has been left open. Um, Kind of wonder what the strategy is with that. When you're looking at community development and community change as what our interests are, it's very disturbing to think that the policies that are in front of us are going in the wrong direction.
Well, if you like what you hear, get in touch with us. Please um, indicate if you're a community activist, if you're doing something that is involved with this topic, what your situation is like. Let us know. Like us and respond to us. YouTube or with Facebook at Community and Social Change.
Because that's what we're about. And we want to support your community in changing in the right direction. Thank you.